We're going to look at some of the features of mySQL Workbench now. And we're going to connect mySQL Workbench to a remote mySQL database server. I'm going to start it up here. It's a client application, as you can see. I'm going to choose the option to open connection to start querying. We've got no saved connections at the moment. And from the stored connection drop down, we can choose manage stored connections. And on the manage stored connections, we choose a new one. And we're going to now name this as developer. We're going to change the host name to the IP of the remote server that we want to connect to. And the port is the default port of 3306 that's used for mySQL. This could be changed in the config.ini file for mySQL if you wanted to do that or needed to do that. I'm going to choose the username now, and we're going to test the connection using the test connection button here in the bottom right. You can see now it's asking us for the password for this user, and we can save the password in the vault if we wish to, and I'm going to do this at this stage because it's handy for later on. However, if there are security reasons why you wouldn't do that, you can leave that box unchecked. So it's telling me now the connection parameters are correct, so we click OK to that, and we close out, and we press OK, and we can see now we've already connected in. I'm going to close it down and start it up again just to show that the connection has been created and that it works without having to without any additional user input. If I double click on the option there, we can see now we're connected in, and we're connected into a single database here because that's what the user has access to, and it's this NHS iPool database, as we can see. And if we choose the table view on it, you can see we have some tables here. We don't have any views, and we have a couple of routines. So we choose the table view, we can see we can choose the tables, and we can manipulate the tables from here through SQL scripts. However, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create an ER diagram by reverse engineering the database. So we select the database and choose database at the top and reverse engineer, and we can see we want to use the developer connection that we've just created to do this, and that way we don't have to worry about adding in any additional details. We follow through the options until we get to the schemas, and the one we wish to use is the NHS one. Click on next, and we execute. So we finish that, and we can see now we have the objects created in graphical form on the screen. We can separate these out in order to get a clearer view of them. And there we go. And we're going to look at we're going to make a relationship here on the screen. And remember, once we've created a database, created the ER diagram from an existing database, we've got to do the connections manually. So we can see we're going to choose the log file as one file and the accounts file as another. So we're going to just make a relationship here between these two, and I'm going to switch this over to this side. And you can see there's some options here for creating the relationships, and we're going to place it on existing columns because we don't need to create new columns for this. This is a design tool. If you were building the database up from the ground up, this would enable you to very quickly create foreign keys once you've got primary keys created on your table. You can also create tables from this interface, and then you can update them to the database. So let's choose the option on the existing columns, and we're going to link the account ID to the account ID here, and you can see it's made the connection itself. And once I hover over the connection, you can see the two fields in question that have been connected are highlighted, and we can see by going that route, we can see we have the one-to-many relationship, which says that we can have as many entries in the NHS account log for each entry in the NHS accounts table. We can also adjust the tables, and the way we can do this is by double clicking on the table, and we can see the bottom of the screen opens up to display the table detail. In this table I'm going to generate, because there's no primary key, I'm going to generate a primary key. I'm going to call it, by double clicking on the column name there, on the new column name, to create a new column. I'm going to name this as NHS account log ID. I'm going to make it an int, with a value of 11. So that seems to be what's used as a standard for the primary fields in this database. And I'm going to make it a primary key, and I'm going to make it auto incrementing. So that's done, and that's pretty much as we need to do with that view. Now we can save that diagram by choosing the save option, and now what we want to do is we want to ripple these changes into the database, and we do this by choosing the database option above. And we're going to synchronize the model with the database, and once again it asks us for the connection to make sure we're doing it in the right place, and we're going to click OK to that, and it's connect to the database and retrieve the data. We'll continue with that, choose the schema, and just follow through with this. We're going to execute the changes. I'm going to close. So now we're going to go back to the database view, and we do this by clicking on the SQL editor, and we're going to look at the tables now, and we're going to look at the table we've just updated, and it's log table. Now it'll take a little bit of time just to reconnect to the server, so if we can give it a second. Okay, we've connected back in, so I can look at the columns now, and I can see that it's updated now the NHS log ID column, and you can see it's a key field, so it's updated that back into the database. So we can see that that tool can be used for back flushing any changes from the EER diagram into the database, which is quite useful. We're going to go back to the table of entities now. We're going to forget about the EER diagram. We'll close that down. We should have already saved it. And we're going to look at now routines. And just very quickly, I'm going to look at routines and how they're handled in this tool. And remember, these routines are very similar to the stored procedures in SQL Server. I've created two just by way of sample. And if we want to look at one of these routines, we right click on it and we alter the routine. So it scripts this out into a script window as an SQL script. I need to just move this out of the way. Okay, and we can see it there, our procedure. Now if we wish to make a change to that, we can do that quite easily. And let's say I just need to make a change that makes it think I've done something with it. So let's try and apply that. It's actually said no changes. Let's look at the table. And let's put a constraint on here where is greater than let's say 5. Okay, so we made a change to that table now, or to that script now. So we should be able to change that by applying, and you can see what it does is it scripts it out as a create procedure, which drops the original procedure if it exists and creates a new one. So you can adjust it even at this stage should you wish to do that. For instance, if you wanted to make a new procedure from that, you could just change the name of the procedure to a new one, and we can apply that. So we're going to finish with that, and once that's done we can check that it's updated that correctly by once again going back to the routine, right clicking and choosing alter again, and we can see the changes have come up. Another thing we can do is if we want to run that locally from this tool and see how it's going to work, we can use the call function. So we're going to choose call, and it's going to be calling test, and then we run that procedure. Okay, so it's telling me no database has been selected, so I'm going to select that database and try it again. Okay, so it's telling me there's been rows returned. I need to find them so we can see them. Yeah, just minimize that again. So this needs to come out of the way. Yeah, that's it now. Let me just move this up a bit and we can see. So you can see all the records have been returned, and the account ID has to be greater than 4, so all the results returned there are defined by the store procedure. Let's just look very quickly at the second procedure, because this is a parameter procedure, and if we look at it here, again we go to procedure and we right click and choose alter, and we look at it and we can see what it's asking us to do here. It's telling us to input in SR underscore, that's stored routine event ID, and that'll be input by the user, and then it runs a select query which displays a record from that table, from the table NHS events, where the event ID is equivalent to what the user inputted. And once again, if we go back to this view, we can change this to 2, but now we've got to put in the parameter, and remember we put in the parameter in brackets. If there's more than one, it's brackets separated by a comma, but in this case we've only got 1, and we're going to put it in for event ID equals, let's say it's 4. We can see there it's a camera, so let's call it 4, and once we've done that we can run it. And once again we can see event ID is 4, it shows us the record. We can change this to 6 if we want to run it again, and again use the run button, and we can do it that way. So you can see it's a very good tool to be able to both edit the scripted routines and to test them locally before you need to go coding them into your respective server languages, PHP or something like that. Okay, thanks.